Hey guys, we just finished up our latest short film called Color of the Moon. So if you guys haven't checked it out, you can watch it on our channel. But I'm going to do a color grading breakdown and talk about 2 scenes that I really love and I think were really simple to color grade, and just talk about kind of what my process was and how I got the final results. Okay, so to start things off, I'll reset everything. So I'm going to have 3 nodes created in my node tree. I just kind of keep it like that as a good starting point. And in the middle node, node number 2, this is where I do my color space transform. So we shot on the Sony A7S III, and we shot in S-Log3. Okay, so I just threw on the color space transform effect, and I'm going to go down and choose a setting. So once again, we shot in the Sony S-Gamut 3 Cine color space, and then we shot in S-Log3, Sony S-Log3. And then right now I'm going to put in the output color space, so I want this to be in Rec 709. And then for my output gamma, I'm going to choose gamma 2.4. So this is now properly converted into Rec 709, and now I can start just building off of that. So in this next node is node number 3, and so what I'm going to do is input the LUT that I want to use. So right here I have these LUTs that I have from Danny Gevirtz, and the one I really like, I think really fits the scene really well, is the Danny Gevirtz Warm Nostalgia LUT. I think this one has a nice warm tone to it, so I'm going to just apply that onto node number 3. And I don't love how strong it is in the picture right here, so what I'm going to do to change the strength of the LUT that I just applied is go down to this panel. This one's called the key, and then you go down to key output, and then you can choose how much of the LUT you want to be applied. So I don't want too much, I just want a little bit just to bring back that warmth. So I'm gonna go probably just like around 5, just 0.5, so right there. So I love how just warm and even it is. And then what I'm noticing right now is that the shadows are really crushed, and the highlights are a little bit kind of not where I wanted it. This is a little bit more like somber, a little bit more like a sad moment of the film, so I don't want it to be super harsh and distracting. So what I'm going to do is go down to my first LUT, or first node, and then make my exposure adjustments. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is bring up those shadows. So I'm just going down to shadows and start bringing that up. I don't want to go too high, so I'll just go to, yeah, just right there, 16, I think is a great point. And then next thing I'm going to do is just take down the highlights a little bit. So I'm just going to go down and just even it out so it's not distracting in the back window or on her face. So I'm just bringing that down. And I love how that looks right there. And the next thing I want to do is going to make an adjustment to the lift section. So there's 3 different channels within this image. So you have your lift, gamma, and gain. And pretty much a lift is like those really dark shadows, dark blacks that you can raise up so they're not being crushed. And you can see in this picture right here, if I go down and use the waveform, you can see where the image is sitting, and look, a lot of it down here is being crushed. So what I'm going to do is go to the lift and just bring it up a little bit so it's not sitting all the way at the bottom. But I don't want to bring it too high, or it'll just start flattening out the image again, which I don't want. So I really love how that's looking. And then you can add other things. I think one thing I want to add, so I'm going to just add another node. So I'm going to just push Option S, add a node, and just go to Effects and go to my vignette, add that on top. I'm going to keep it in the basic mode, anamorphic, make it wide, make the size as high as possible, and then just make a small adjustment to where I want it, and just toggle on and off to see where I want everything centered. And I really love how it looks right now. So yeah, so here's the first image. So I'll do a before and after. So here's before, so everything, you know, this was properly exposed, and then now after I applied everything, so we have the color space transform going into the LUT. And then I made some exposure adjustments with the shadows and highlights, evened it out, and then using the lift to bring back those blacks that were crushed a little bit by the LUT. And then just threw a vignette at the end just to change up the focus of the image. So that's how I did the first scene. Now we're going to jump to the next scene, which is a little bit different. All right, so this next scene we have right here is a sunset scene, which was amazing lighting. Like, sunset's always the best time to shoot. So we had nice soft lighting already coming in, but we had a little bit it was a little bit harsh. So one thing we did while we were shooting in the production was have just a diffuser, so it wasn't coming as harsh on their faces. So that's pretty much all we did in production wise, was just using diffusion, and then we just flagged a little bit just on that shadow side so it's not bouncing too much. So besides the production stuff, now we're going to talk about color grading. What I'm going to do, talk about the node tree, kind of how I got here. So let's get to it. Okay, so the first thing that's going to happen, so the color grade that I used for this actually came from a filmmaking friend of ours. His name is Oliver Keys. He reached out to us talking about this new power grade that he wanted to try out and let other creators start trying out, see how it was, and it came out really great for the scene. I really love how all the colors look. It looked really balanced, and we just want to shout him out to make sure that if you guys are interested in this color grading, you can check out his channel, because he has more in depth about how to use this and kind of the footage that he's been practicing it with. But for us, I applied the power grade. I deleted all the stuff that I wasn't using because this is a pretty large node tree. So the first thing I'm going to do is that color space transform. And for him, he said just to put in the color space. So same thing, we shot S-Gamma 3 Cine in S-Log 3. And now our output color space is Rec 709. And then instead of putting the output gamma as Gamma 2.4, we're going to actually change that to Cine on film log. And the reason why that happens is because the LUT that he has created for this is a little bit strong on a lot of that detail in the log footage. So if you use the Gamma 2.4, it'll come out too strong where we're crushing blacks, bringing the highlights up too much, and the saturation is off. So what Cine on film log is just a more flat image designed for specific LUTs. So we're going to now apply that LUT. So you can just download it, put it into your LUT table, and then click that LUT, and then it'll be applied. So now we have this, and so it's a little bit cool. We got to fix some exposure. So what we're going to do next is go into our exposure. So what I did here is I changed a little bit in the shadows. So I brought it up because without it, as you can see, it's just a little bit too dark. So I brought that up a little bit. And then the next thing I did was, which was a part of the power grade, was having this magenta. So what pretty much happened in here was in the gain and gamma channel, which really affects a lot of the midtones and the overall image, is that we brought it up. So it went from, zeros in the middle, because if you can look down here in the color wheels, that it should be in the middle, but we brought it up just a little bit. So this one went more towards like the warmer side of orange, and this one went more towards like that pink magenta tone. So it kind of evened out that blue look that we're getting that was super cold and isn't really nice for sunsets. So we added that bit back in, and it kind of balanced everything back out. So next thing we did was kind of assess the white balance in the image. So if I apply it right here, we brought back more of those green tones that were happening. So if you just go down to the tint, I just brought it down to -11 because I just didn't want that much magenta being applied into the image. So now it's looking, more sunset-y. That's a word. But next thing we're going to do is the saturation. So in this image, as you can see, before, it looks really good. It just depends on the mood. Like, you can totally leave it like this, depending on the tone of your film, the tone of your project. But for me, I wanted to have a little bit more saturation, especially in the skin tones and the sky. So what happened in this is that in the saturation down here, it was just brought up just a little bit. So it just brought saturation back into her face right here, and especially in the sky with those blue colors, and then even just some of that magenta tone kind of happening. And this next one is a really stylized effect that can be used. This one was in the power grade that he sent over. So this one is like a Gaussian blur, so it adds a little bit more like that mist filter effect. So if you don't have a mist filter or want to have a little bit more strength, you can add a Gaussian blur, and pretty much you just go to your effects right here and just type in Gaussian blur, bring it over, drag it in, and boom, you have it. So but what happened was, you can just look at these settings, that's just a little bit of each. So horizontal and vertical strength just brought up, so it just makes it a little bit of a softer image. And then finally, the last two nodes in our node tree is just for some correction. So the first one is sharpening. So in shooting at S-Log3, sometimes the image can come out a little bit too soft, especially if you have like a mist filter. So just add a little bit more texture back into the image. You can just sharpen it. So you just go to sharpen right here, go down to this sharpening and blur effect, and then just make adjustment. I wouldn't go anything below 0.47 or it starts looking too digital. So for me, I just went down to 0.48. That's typically where I go for adding sharpness back into the image. So that's what I did for that node. And the final one is halation. I feel like a lot of people are using halation lately, and I think it really looks really good if you apply it really well. And so this one actually changes the image to something completely different. So if you can see, I'm going to click it, and already you can tell like how much of a difference that made to the tone. Okay, so what halation is an effect. It comes from shooting in film, and it basically is like a strong, almost like mist filter, and it gives a glow to the image that you have. And you see it mostly in highlights, and it gives off like a reddish effect, which I think really looks good in some lighting scenarios, and I think it looks good in this film. But I'm going to apply it right now, and then as you can see in the sky automatically is that it's a lot more red, a lot more pink, and especially in the skin tones coming around on the highlights, that it really brings the image back. So that is all I have for this node. So here's a quick before and after. So flat log footage, nothing really happening, and then throw in the color, and look, 100% better, looks really good. So make sure you guys check it out, the short film on our channel, and make sure you subscribe because we have more videos coming. So stay tuned, and we'll see you in the next one.